All right, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, whatever time it is, 11:30. I guess it's kind of fitting here. I'm the anchor of the whole group, and not dissimilar to high school, kind of the same rundown, but my parents were very unhappy about that part. But nonetheless, I wanted to speak to all of you today about Handoff and really what goes on behind the scenes, if you will, and relevant to many of you is the handoff between capital project teams and between the facilities operations teams, and really not focusing so much on the end users, but focusing on the end users in the sense that we're all working towards the same objective. I am the Assistant Vice President for Capital Projects, so I oversee architecture, engineering, construction, and so forth for Columbia University Medical Center. And I work very closely with a collaborative team of, and a fully integrated team of facilities professionals at the medical center. I'm going to run through a couple of quick slides and just really framing what we see and think about as traditional capital teams and so forth. And I don't think any surprises here is this group of people are the traditional components to what we think of as the implementers for a capital project. Certainly the end users, purchasing department, builders, the design team, and the various consultants and so forth. And then, one that gets left off quite a bit is it's the supply chain and the vendors that actually make all the materials and so forth. In our business, we're only as good as our weakest link. So what does the project transition really look like? And at what point does a capital project and those traditional people that contribute to the traditional project, at what point does the project really become part of the physical plant and so forth? Something that we spend a fair amount of time talking about, struggling with, identifying, and working to integrate all the different project teams. So the transition really is between that physical plant team and between the capital projects team. So you've got two groups of people that need to come together. The key university stakeholders, certainly outside and above those that are going to ultimately use the facility, it's the facilities operations team that is equally our clients and our customers on the capital project side. I think, clear as day is right at the top of the list is facilities operations, custodial services, compliance and fire safety, the finance team. Those are going to help you put the money in place and then process the bills and so forth. The communications group, and then certainly the security teams. So as we think about all of the regular team and then the enhanced project team, we very much have a traditional timeline on how we, as the builders of buildings and of implementers of projects, really understand the typical process that onsets with the RFP goes through multiple traditional design phases. We then build the building, we close the building out, and then it's always the handoff at the end. The key essence of what I really wanted to communicate and talk about here is to think about touching upon 3 or 4 processes that really speak to transitioning the project from day one. So with that let me just jump right in to the first one here, is what we call is our TRM. That's a technical review meeting. Not glamorous, not overly sexy, but it is a highly structured format and meeting that we put together, that the facilities operations team puts together, where the architect, the engineer, the project management team all come in at multiple phases throughout the life of a capital project, really at the beginning, at the onset, at the conceptual design phase, at the end of the schematic design phase, and then at the end of just before the construction document phase, at the end of the design development phase. And they typically do that handoff, or they do the TRM at those multiple phases to make sure that, and to really inform the design team on all of the various limitations and opportunities within a given building. We have an incredibly broad portfolio of buildings. The campus was originally built in 1928. The core of the buildings built in 1928. And then the campus has expanded beyond that organically, probably like many of your sites over the years. So this is an incredibly invaluable meeting for the facilities operations people, specifically engineering, to go through and to talk about what the opportunities and the limitations are for proposed designs. In addition to that is that facilities operations, right at the onset of the project, is this while we are going through and we're writing our RFPs for architecture services, engineering services, and other professional consultants, that we're bringing all those people on board, is that the engineering team, in parallel, is putting out the RFPs for the commissioning. So they are also doing that for the building acceptance team. That's going to be an enhanced team over and above the facilities ops individuals that are going to be taking that project on at the end. A very important component, and those commissioning individuals now have a seat at the life of the design and the construction process, so that there is a full understanding of what's going to happen at the end and an integration in with that whole plan. So the third mechanism that we utilize is the super team. And what does that mean? So the super team really speaks to the superintendents meeting with the capital projects and the facilities operations folks. And what this meeting does is on a weekly basis, within a matter of 1 hour, what we do is we bring in 10 different projects, usually with different project teams. We are very much focused in sort of the nature of the work that we do is design, build, bid process. So we have many, many projects in the range of $1 million to $5 million, maybe $10 or $12 million. We're in a vertical campus, high-rise buildings that ranges anywhere from a couple stories up to 15, 20, 25 stories and so forth. So there's an incredible interaction that needs to take place between the various project teams and then also between those operations folks. So this group of people that might be working in a given building, for example, we're going through a major redo of the medical center at this stage of the game, where we've vacated about 5 or 6 stories in an 18-story building, different contractors doing work on different floors. This becomes the coordination where it's the loading dock, it's the elevator, it's the building shutdowns, and in very strict time, in 1 hour, that we're going through with the facilities operations folks with me, and it's one of the few meetings that I sit in. In fact, it's the only meeting that I sit in on a project level, and we completely flush out all of those discussions. I will say that this is the least sexy, least glamorous picture that I'm going to share with you, but I've really got to say is that it's one of the most effective tools that we have for bringing a level of coordination amongst the various project teams and amongst the facilities operations team. The fourth mechanism, I think we spend a tremendous amount of time and energy talking through technology transfer, and we do that at the earliest stages. Architecture teams, engineering teams, BIM modeling teams, and so forth. Prepare the documents, have an idealized model of what that facility is going to look like. That in of itself is just one component of many of the technology that needs to be transitioned over to the facilities ops organization. In addition to that is so we've got newer projects that there's a whole host of audiovisual capture We are now into having a broadcast component to some of that audio-visual so that there's the opportunity for a level of professionalism with a two-way dialogue between somebody that might be presenting and a remote audience that can speak back to that particular presentation. So that in of itself, and then sort of the more traditional components of what that technology transfer is. Certainly the fire alarm integration, the security is becoming more and more complicated, certainly on the secure systems, but on the AV and those systems. But then also in addition to that is to say you've got a full integration with the building management system, and then also in some instances a backnet system where infrequently we're going to be using a backnet to tie back into the customary system. But that again is a very important transition. So it's all these sort of idealized things. There is always something that doesn't quite work right. So the handoff is always riddled with some level of challenge between the operations team and the construction team, and you get some level of failure or breakdown or misunderstanding or miscommunication, or a vendor that's handcrafting custom lights in England that's going to be the last component that's going to arrive to your job site 3 or 4 weeks late. And like anybody else's, is that we get a tremendous amount of challenges. So with that, I just wanted to touch on perhaps 3 areas of traditional challenges that we see, and I will call it sort of the 3 T's. The first one is timelines, the second one is teams, and then the third one is technology. The team dynamic is of incredible importance. The facilities operations team, the project timelines. This is a new auditorium that we brought online. It was a complete renovation of a 650-seat auditorium. We did it over the course of 2 summers. The first summer is just that we did a recladding, and you can see that recladding on the upper portion. It was a complete reversal of the way that the university had a relationship or an attitude towards the community. It was a complete concrete bunker, absolutely no lights, no windows, and so forth. And we went through a complete recladding of that auditorium, and that's really the upper picture. The bottom picture is that we did a complete renovation of the 650-seat auditorium. Fire alarm systems, smoke detection systems, all new technology, acoustical upgrades, and so forth, all of which had to be done in that second summer. So there was an incredible dance floor that went in to take down that structure, the whole ceiling structure. Dance floor went up, team built the whole new top part, reclad the entire auditorium, and then did that body of work in a matter of 4 months. So one of the key challenges is that we're constantly, as a capital projects team, and similar to all of you, is that working through and managing very aggressive deadlines and managing through expectations that go hand in hand with that. The other key challenges that we see is this, very much in sort of a humanist basis. We have a facilities operations team, as that you can see on the back side. This is a new education building that we've brought in line in 2017. I know it's very difficult to see, but that was effectively in addition to a 75,000 square foot research building. We had a terrific team of people that knew how to run a research facility building with an animal facility in it. When we brought in a whole new school, in this particular instance, this is the School of Nursing building, 7 stories, 70,000 square foot addition. That's how we sometimes have to get things passed through in New York City. The addition took advantage of vertical transportation, it took advantage of fire alarm systems and so forth. But that team struggled immensely, and we struggled immensely with training people that we're accustomed to working with research community and animal facility community, and now how do we get people to become sensitive to a whole new student body and a faculty body component there. So in 2016, we brought this building online. This is the Vagelos Education Center. It's 14 stories. It's 100,000 square feet. It has won, I think, more awards than the American Institute of Architects had to hand out. It far and surpasses just about anything that we could have built at the time as regards to integrating in technology to the building. The building is so smart that by itself it can run a cryo-electron microscope, it can cure cancer, and it can beat Watson at chess. The building is incredible. But with that comes the challenges of how do we become better stewards of all of that technology that's built into the building. So sort of on a regular basis is that we, at the earliest stages, struggled quite a bit, in all honesty, with that technology. Solar shades are down in the middle of the night, lights are on all day, and just the facility, the faculty in of itself sometimes has an incredible problem in going in and using smart boards of ultra-high alacrity and so forth. So real challenges in terms of the evolution of the technology in a brand new facility. Similar to that, and in parallel to that, as I said, is that we have a lot of buildings where we've got original 1928 buildings. We as an institution are so incredibly pressed for space and for adaptive reuse that we do not effectively abandon the old buildings, but we continue to make investments into central infrastructure systems. We continue to redo floor-by-floor fit-outs and so forth, and we maintain those old facades. So with that, another incredible technology or another incredible challenge is that how do we continue to integrate, or how do we integrate the old buildings with the new systems and the new technologies? So then really sort of in keeping is that, as I thought about the presentation, I didn't want to come and showcase a particular building, but to use a couple of examples to really perhaps lay out a couple of examples on how we are challenged as a facilities organization. But the key question for us, and I think a dialogue for all of us going forward, is how do we see ourselves doing better? Many of the conversations I've had over the past couple of days with all of you, and I think a prevailing theme is empathy. Empathy for what your other partner within the facility organization is going through at a particular moment in time. It's not that any particular person is there just to, not help you, not to try to assist, but people have their day jobs, if you will, of just maintaining and addressing fire alarms and floods and so forth. So empathy for both the capital side and back and forth. And to build that empathy, it's very much incumbent upon the leadership to get those throughout the rank and file to have empathy and really understanding between the various groups. So training. Training is absolutely critical. And I know that we spend a lot of time on the front end, is on the capital project, is that there's always 1 or 2 cycles of training that happens with the facilities operations team. We get the sign-on sheets. There's a handful of people that are there. They learn, they understand, they go out. The learning has been, and certainly the goal is to continue to procure at the onset of the projects enhanced training, so that we have a mechanism so that we can have either a train-the-trainer and identify that train-the-trainer, or to have an enhanced and a longer period of time between the building specialty systems, so that we're a year or 2 years in to schedule out quarterly or sessional types of training and refresh sessions. So communications. Communications in of itself is a real biggie. I know that we spent some time yesterday going through, and there was some terrific presentations as it relates to communications. I will say, and I think that all of you know, is that knowing and understanding your audience is absolutely critical. And for all of us, that there is multiple audiences that the facilities organization has to speak to. Senior level folks in the dean's office, the finance folks, the neighbors during capital projects, the integrated people that are going to deliver those teams, and managing the communications in multiple ways is something that we continue to aspire to and to continue to develop. With that, I think that we may or may not be unique, but as an integrated facilities team, the leadership has put together a communications group just within facilities. So we have 3 full-time people in facilities. They help us with things like this. They help us with signage. They help us with emails. They help us with web-based communications, so that there's a much higher level of professionalism, and truthfully that all translates into a much higher level of credibility on behalf of the facilities organization. So very much something that we continue to do and want to do better. And then finally is its metrics. So the metrics is really a renewed interest amongst the facilities leadership group. As I said, I'm one of 8 different people that owns a major component within the facilities organization. The metrics is really, the renewed interest in metrics is something that came out of a facilities leadership retreat that we had about 4 months ago. And what we're working through as a facilities organization, and each individual person is developing a yardstick, a level of measurement for each one of the facilities leadership individuals, so that we can do a better job of measuring our levels of success across the delivery and implementation for each and all of the capital projects. So with it, that's pretty much all that I had. I think that was probably 15, maybe 20 minutes. I apologize if it was much longer than that. Thank you. Any questions? Any questions?
Can you explain kind of the psychology between the capital planning side and the facilities ops side, how you're able to blend the two to get them to operate as a team, breaking down what are typically silos?
That is an excellent question. Honestly, probably like many organizations, everybody struggles immensely with it. One of the things that I did not really speak too much about is the competing priorities. Competing priorities are often rooted in finances. But the psychology really comes with the importance of getting the leadership to all of us, and myself included, is to really buying in, demonstrating, and working to integrate one another. It is an extraordinarily difficult task, and it's a daily task, because we all have our individual responsibilities, and my chief goal is to make sure that these projects are delivered. Facilities operations has the goal of chiefly is making sure that the physical plant is operating. It's not flooding, it's staying cool in the summer, warm in the winter. So I think most directly is it really starts with the leadership, and then it works with the leadership to get the buy-in and the training of the next tier down. It's the staff management to get that next group of people to participate in that leadership goal and that leadership vision. All right. Thank you very much.
Oh, we have one more question over here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks. You mentioned that you use metrics. What are the metrics that you've identified just for your capital construction area?
So, very good question. Certainly one of the key things, so we come under 2, and I think the most basic things, or I think the most basic yardsticks in our industry is time and money. And so one of the key things is that we measure what it costs for us to deliver a particular project. We measure that in a given buildings, 1928 research building, educational facilities. We went out and we partnered with Deloitte, and we commissioned a study to go out and look at how we compare with our peers in New York City. So we did that with 5 hospitals. And we also looked at what our peers are doing and what it costs the peers to do on a national basis within deep urban environments. So it's UCSF, University of Chicago, Yale University, University of Pennsylvania. So what does it cost to deliver projects on a comparative basis? Come under intense criticism every couple of years. It costs too much. It's a Home Depot effect. We all know what that is. And then the other thing is the time durations. So we spend a fair amount of time actually benchmarking and using it as a communication tool to articulate from go does not mean at the beginning of the design process. Go does not mean at the beginning of when interviews are happening and the programming sessions are happening at the design phase. Go really is at the initial concept of when the project happens, and the first steps of that is the institutional period of time just to get monies appropriated. So building all of those various components, including the commissioning, the handoff, and the turnover, construction might only wind up to be half of that. But measuring and articulating and communicating from end to end what it really takes to deliver a project within, honestly, a big bureaucracy is of immense importance as a communication tool on the capital project side.
Well, Patrick, I want to thank you for a great presentation to close out this year's forum. Thank you very much.